jails, gangs and justice. Created this podcast to help others like myself who have been through the system, who have been through the struggles, to overcome whatever it is you've been through. Hello. Hey everyone. Thanks for coming down. I'm Jacob Little from About Time for Justice. I just wanted to pay my respects to all First Nations mob, past, present and emerging. And I want to just tell everyone if you want to just walk out during the session, that's fine. It's just a trigger warning. I'm going to be talking about sad stories. Yeah. So my organisation is About Time for Justice, and I got a bit of a story of how I got there. When I was 17 years old, I landed in Brisbane Boys Yard. So Brisbane Boys Yard was located inside of Brisbane Correctional Centre, a men's maximum security jail in Queensland. So when I was there, I remember sort of my first couple of days there, I was pretty scared. I walked into the unit, it was a 50-man unit. It was 2 tiers. So bottom tier, there was like say 25 cells. Top tier, there was 25 cells. And I remember walking into my cells for the first couple of times, and it was like the first time I seen the inside of a prison cell other than the watch house. So it was a bit different than the watch house. So you had your toilet on the right hand side, you had a wall as soon as you moved in, as soon as you walked in. On the other side of the wall, there's like a shower. Above your toilet on the right hand side, there was a little dome. So when the screws walk past your cell, if you're having a shower, taking a shit, they could just look at you. So you always had to think about what the screws are coming past your door, looking through the window with the torch on. To your left hand side, there's a little sort of place where you can put all your toiletries or clothes, and then you have a bed. So it was pretty intimidating for me walking in there. Institutions don't discriminate. So I walked in there, I was just one white fella. There's Koori mob, there's Islanders, Asians, there's all sorts of different nationalities in there. Out in the jail yard, it was pretty bare. There was just a phone, chin-up bars, dip bars. I remember just before I got there, Southport Watch House, and that was my local watch house when I was a kid. This is actually the watch house at Southport. So I remember, I've probably been there about 10 times growing up, but every time I used to get in trouble, that's where you'll go just before you went to jail. So Brisbane Correctional Centre, I suppose, was the place where the boys yard was, and I went there a couple times. I remember that's sort of what the cell looked like. That was the yard, and that's what it was like, these 2 tiers. So you had the bottom tier, top tier, and that was sort of what your jail yard sort of looked like. So when I turned 18, because Brisbane Correctional Centre was a sentence prison, so it wasn't a remand centre, but there was only one place for us to go as kids, at 17-year-olds at that time, and it was the Brisbane Boys Yard. But I was still on bail, so I was still on remand, hadn't been sentenced. So on my 18th birthday, I remember I put all my things, all my belongings together, and I wrapped it up in a sheet and chucked it over my shoulder. And I walked out, and I was pretty scared because of what happened to me, watching movies, going to a men's jail. And I remember jumping on the bus, getting to Arthur Gorrie, and I was worried as. I remember going through the intake. They were asking me mental health questions. They were asking me, just like my name, date of birth and all that. And then I remember walking down to my unit, and I was pretty scared. I was seeing all like heaps of older fellas. I didn't know what to expect, and it was a pretty hard time in my life. I remember getting out of jail. When I got out of jail, I got involved in street gangs. I got involved in an outlaw motorcycle gang, and I was really angry too because of what I've been through. When I've been through that SA, been through the abuse, so I was starting to hang around maybe the wrong people. Didn't have many good mentors in my corner. Started taking a lot of drugs, started drinking, started getting into more and more violent crimes. So I was in a street crew, and like the street crew that I hung around was hanging around like a bikies, the outlaw motorcycle club, and things escalated pretty quick there. I remember like we were only getting in fights and sort of, drinking, partying, committing sort of not so serious crimes. But then I remember sort of, all the boys are starting to get big whacks. Boys are getting pinched for drug trafficking. Boys are doing GBHs, home invasions, robberies. So these little sentences that I suppose went to jail for. My first sentence was just like an assault. And then sort of, when I got out, we kept doing the same sorts of things. But then they started getting a lot more serious. When you're looking at a couple of years or even bigger whacks, that definitely starts getting more serious, and you start asking yourself the questions, do I really want to be in this life? At that time, it was all yes for me because I only done them small sentences. But at that time, for me, I grew up in housing commission. There's a lot of domestic violence. There's a lot of drinking. In my neighbourhood in particular, there was most of the other kids' parents or mothers, brothers, sisters, they were, you know, in jail. They were drinking. So it was pretty normalized for me. When I got to that age, it was very appealing. I remember rocking up to the clubhouse most Friday nights, most weekends, partying with the boys. There was heaps of girls there. There was heaps of drinks. There was no dickheads there. So it was like I was looking for a place or a sense of brotherhood, because I didn't really have many good mentors in my corner. There was a lot of domestic violence when I was growing up, a lot of drinking, and a lot of different men in my life too. And some of them men were, they were crims, they were bikies. So I remember the second time I got locked up in Queensland, they brought out this law called the acronym for it is VLAD, VLAD, but it's Vicious Lawless Association Disestablishment Act. And if you were charged under these laws, you were faced with a mandatory minimum 20-year prison sentence. And also, you can see people wearing pink there. So that's my mum there. And we were made to wear pink. Or you were made to wear pink if you got locked up. You had to do 22-hour-day lockdowns. No TV in the cell. Only contact to the outside world was 1 6-minute phone call a day. 1 non-contact visit a week. What a non-contact visit means is there's a piece of glass. So like if you see in a movie, you like go and visit someone and there's a piece of glass. So you can't touch your loved one physically. You're just looking at them through a piece of glass and you talk through like mesh. So that was really hard. And I remember at that time, I think I was on bail, back on probation. I think I was even on parole at that time. I was on a court ordered parole. So in Queensland, anything under a 3-year sentence, you get automatic court ordered parole, which is really good. But I remember with that court order sentence, I was still fucking up. And me and my mates were getting in more and more trouble. Anyway, we went down to the gym, me and my coe, and we're at the gym, and someone said like a bad word to me from a different club, and he was at the gym, this guy, and I fronted him straight away. I was like, "You called me this bad word, like what you go?" And I think he punched me in the face, or he said, "Do you want to have a go?" It was one of them two. Anyway, so we went outside and we had a one-on-one fight. From an outsider's perspective who's a stiff, someone who's a clean skin, that'd be pretty scary, right? Two guys, shirts off, heavily tattooed, having a fight. We just shook hands and then went inside and kept training. But the gym owners or whatever called the cops. And at this time, the anti-association laws, they set up like massive task force, like I think they're called Maxima in Queensland. So Maxima task force was set up. So they literally had like all these cops come down. I jumped in my car and drove off. I thought I got out of there. And they pulled me over. There was helicopters. It was an overkill. All I got charged with was an affray, which is still bad. Don't get me wrong. So I remember I was at Brisbane, back to Brisbane Correctional Centre for my second time, and I was straight down to the detention unit. And like about a week or so just before I had that fight at the gym, I sent one of my brothers off to jail. We met at Beanley Watch House, and I think he got whacked with the 4 on the bottom, GBH, and I was like, "See you, brother. I'll see you on the other side." I didn't know where the other side was going to be at that time, whether it was when he got out of jail or if it was going to be in jail. So anyway, I logged into Brisbane Correctional Centre, and I was in the detention unit, and every single person in that unit was an Outlaw Motorcycle Club member. So like next door to me was a different club, across the road was a different club. Every single person in there was a member. And at that time, I was like, fuck, this is looking bad. I knew what the repercussions were if you got charged under these laws. So I was sitting in there. Anyway, my next door neighbour from a different club, he's like, "Hey, your brother's down the end." And I was trying to think, who's my brother? And it was actually my mate who was at Beanley Watch House with the week before. Anyway, so it's about day 9, day 10, and they put the buy up in. So your buy up's how you get your food. So it's like a piece of paper and you basically just tick it. So I ordered my buy up. Oh, I didn't get to order my buy up because I don't think I had money in my account at that time. So like I love my chocolate and that. I got a real bad sweet tooth. So I'm like 9 days in, no chocolate, coming down. Anyway, my mate sends me down a block of chocolate, and it was the best block of chocolate you've ever tasted in your life. It's fucking grouse. I remember going from there to Woodford Correctional Centre. So Woodford Correctional Centre, from the other photo before, and it was like the 2 tiers. So it was back to that style of jail. So I'm about 14 days in here, just been doing segregation every day. And I got to Woodford, and at that point, we didn't get to talk. I tried to yell out to him, but it was too far away. He couldn't hear me. I couldn't hear him. But we jumped on the bus together, and at that time we were at war with a different club, literally punching on the street just before I got locked up. And we got told that when we got to that jail that, so the yard was segregated. So every different club was segregated with another club. And when you got out for your 2 hours every day, you go out to the yard. And the club that we were paired with was the club they were at war with. And I was shitting myself. Me and him were on the jail bus together, and we're like, we have to go out in the yard, because if we don't go out in the yard, what's going to happen is we're going to bring shame to our club, and also we'll probably just get our heads kicked in. So we're like, fuck it, we're just going to go out back to back. And I was dead set shooting myself. We went out back to back, but nothing ended up happening. We ended up just saying we thought the screws were trying to set us up. Anyway, that was probably the hardest jail I've ever done. So I've done 2.5 months of that jail. I remember just sitting in that cell thinking it's just going to be the rest of my life. My father was about 10 years into his 16.5-year prison sentence. That is my old man. We both got big ugly heads. So I remember just sitting there thinking, this is going to be the rest of my life. I'm looking at 20 right now. Dad's 10 years into it. Anyway, they couldn't charge the part so I ended up getting out of the unit, but I still had to sort of go through the process of getting them charges dropped or whatever it was, because I was on parole at the time. And so I finished the next couple of months at Woodford Correctional Centre. I had a job there, training every day, just a normal jail routine. Mum was coming up. I remember my mum visited me on one of the first times I seen her at the centre, and I had not seen the sun in a while. I had my head shaved, and I was in the look in her eyes, I could tell like she was just trying to hold it together for me. I was like, hey, you right, Mum? What's been going on? And when she left, like, I couldn't give her a cuddle. I couldn't, have that proper, say goodbye. It was just through the glass. So it's like this on the glass to my mum. And she cruised out, and I could tell she was heartbroken. So that was probably the hardest time that I ever sort of had in jail. And when I got out of jail, I was still on a path of destruction. Dad was still in jail. I got visiting my dad in jail. So he'd done a 16.5-year prison sentence in the New South Wales prison system. So I was growing up in housing commission, all the domestic violence, drinking. Everyone else was in the street as, someone's in jail, dad's in jail. So I was just rocking up to the jails every week. I remember rocking up to the jails, and I remember how the screws would treat myself as a 10-year-old kid, growing up all the way up to 26, I believe he got out. So I'd come down, drive all the way down from Sydney with my stepmother at the time. So mum and dad broke up when I was very young. He didn't get incarcerated until I was 10, but he had other women in his life as well. He had my little brother and sister with another woman. They broke up, but she still used to bring the kids down. So that whole time we used to drive from, I suppose, like the Gold Coast down to Sydney. So that's a long in the car. That's a long time in the car with 2 kids. That's a lot of money. You got to get accommodation. You got to pay for the food, and just that long drive. It's really hard. I like to think and say that I think that the family members sitting on the other side are doing it harder than the ones who are in jail sometimes, because it takes a lot to keep turning up to visits, keep doing that week in, week out. Well, we didn't used to do it that much, but yeah, I remember some of them visits, they'd have the sniffer dogs running over your private area, bailing up maybe the boys who were running mucks in the units, women into into a private room and maybe strip searching them. Just because someone's in jail doesn't mean you should treat their loved ones like that, because they're not the men charged. But I feel like at the same time, they didn't give a fuck, the screws. So it was to see. And I remember as I got to the age where I was thinking about becoming a member, I actually had to go and ask my dad inside of Long Bay Correctional Centre, and on a jail member, my chapter member, and he didn't want me to do it. And one of the main reasons that I wanted to get into that life was because of my dad, because I went to the jail visits, because I just grew up idolising my father, and he didn't want me to do it. And I wouldn't take back what I'd done, but I probably should have listened to him, because I wouldn't put myself into some of them positions. But I do remember when Dad was coming up for parole, I was back out on the streets. So I got released from Woodford. I was, grew up visiting Dad in jail. And then I started taking the ownership of taking my little brother and sister down to see my mum and dad. So I used to drive down. He moved jails from Sydney jails to Kempsey jails. It's about a 5-hour drive. And then he went from the men's maximum security at Kempsey then to medium. Didn't mean anything for visits. So I didn't see my dad's skin until I was about 24. Like, I remember when I was a young kid, well, I couldn't remember his skin from when I was a young kid. I only remember seeing my dad in a jumpsuit, like zip ties at the feet. So when I started, Dad to sort of get into more and more minimum security jails, he got out to Glen Innes Correctional Centre. So they were pretty good visits. There was a farm style jail. You could take out food you wanted to that facility. So we'd rock up with an esky, have a big cook up. The family would all be there. Other families would be there. It was happy. When you go through some correctional centres, you have to go through like body scanners to take off your shoes, take off your belt. But when we got farm style jail, it wasn't like that. It's just stressing kids to growing up having to go through that. So it was good. So Dad was coming up for parole, and we were in the same outlaw motorcycle gang. And one of the conditions of him coming home and being able to see me, his own son, was that we were not able to see each other because of non-association. So non-association means that you're not allowed to hang out with any like former club members, or even sometimes with a criminal history. So I grew up my whole life from the age of 10 years old. I was like, fuck this. Like, I choose my family all day. I went and told the club that I was in at that time, and they understood. So I stepped away, but I was still facing demons because just because you step away from that life, it doesn't just go like, you're on this side and then you step over and you're clean and you got a job and you're fucking turning up every day doing all the good stuff. It was me still wigging because I'd done things to people that I probably shouldn't have, went against my morals. And I know if the shoe was on the other foot, that I would probably still want to get them if they'd done what I had done to them. So I was living in fear of other clubs, other crews, other guys kicking my door in. I was worried about the police. I didn't have that protection anymore. I was still heavily involved with drinking, taking drugs. I had a girlfriend at that time, and I feel really bad for her because she was there for me and through that bad time. I was just literally taking drugs every single day, sometimes 4 or 5 days straight, and it was a hard time in my life. I had really bad thoughts in my head. I was struggling after what I had been through, but I knew that I had to change. And Dad got out of jail. He moved down to Glen Innes. So my nan actually moved from where she was so Dad could get out. So he started with the weekend release, work release. So during the week he'd go out and do like clean up around the community. Then it was weekend release. So I'd come down during the weekends with my little brother and sister. And then he got out. And at that time, I just left the club and I was saying today, I was like, I need to change my life. I had a few failed businesses. I was still in crimes. But I knew that I had to stop what I was doing, otherwise I was going to end up back in jail and put all that stress back onto myself, my family. And at that time, I started sharing my story about going through institutional abuse. And I remember, through sharing my stories about going through institutional abuse, I remember there was a story in particular when I was at Brisbane Boys Yard back when I was a real young one. There was one of the brothers that I went through with. So when we both turned 18, he went first before me. And I remember when I got to Arthur Gorrie, I seen him and I was like, hey brother, how you going? He's like, yeah, I'm going good. And I remember just a sad story. I heard that he died in the yard. So he was only 18. We were both 18. He had a shit shot, like dirty shot. So these institutions don't discriminate. My dad done a long time down in the New South Wales prison systems with lots of the brothers, and yeah, we stand with 50% or 50 to 60% of the people that we help, as in survivors, is First Nations. And this is, just say, it's anyone who's sort of been through this essay, like myself, they end up self-medicating, trying to block out their trauma, end up incarcerated. But yeah, from that, we made a good connection with mob all around Australia. I travelled all around Australia, working with Stolen Generation. I had sat with some on country. This fella is an elder from down New South Wales. So some of the communities that I visited around Australia, in New South Wales, is Moree, Dubbo, Burke, Walgett. Been out to, in Queensland, been to Palm Island, been out to Cherbourg, Warrabinda. I lived up in the top end too, for about 6 months. We used to work with Stolen Generation up there. Went down to Alice Springs, Wadair, Port Keats. So sat with a lot of strong men. Also too, about time for justice and going through my own journey. I use fitness a lot to keep me motivated, keep on top of my mental health. I'm running my 3rd Gold Coast Marathon this year. So pretty excited for that. Still, I do a little bit of boxing now and then as well. So for me, that is a big part of my keeping on top of my mental health. I went for a run this morning. Fuck, it was freezing down here. I'm not used to this weather. My fingers were like this, like 2 kilometers in. You might be crazy. Yeah, so I remember, I suppose, after we kicked off About Time for Justice, it was a bit of a journey to get there, because after I spoke to Dad about what am I going to do, what are my next steps, he said, you should start. And then I started working with the organisation that helped me to tell my story, started going to work every single day, started, kept training, started talking to a mental health practitioner. That's like a psych. And yeah, then they encouraged me to start studying. So during my healing journey, I started studying. And I started at the University of Queensland. Pretty mad organisation. They're one of the only ones that support people in prison to study. So that was really cool. And I ended up getting my compensation. And I remember me and Dad kicked off our business. That's us just after COVID kicked off in 2020, sitting in my dad's place. So when COVID happened, I'm not taking anything away from you, Mob, because I know how bad it was down here for you, but we had it pretty bad in New South Wales. I think you had maybe like 12 more weeks than us in lockdown, but I lived right on the border. So they put a border bubble in. Anyway, I was in Queensland. I come down to visit my dad. And when I went to come back, they said, where you been? And I said, oh, just been visiting my dad. And they're like, let me show you your iPhone. Before, if a copper asked me to show me my phone, I'll be like, no fucking way. But I was like, I'm not doing anything anymore. Like, I'll just show them. Anyway, they're like, oh, you've been outside the bubble? I'm like, what does that mean? They're like, you can't come back into Queensland unless you go to Sydney, pay to fly back up and pay for your own accommodation. Anyway, I decided not to do that. And I stayed in New South Wales and me and Dad kicked off the business. So Dad lived in a small 1-bedroom apartment every single morning and night I had to like pack up my bed. So it's like we're back in jail together. Yeah. Yeah, it was small, not up to grown men. So our mission at About Time for Justice is to help all survivors of institutional child SA. When I say SA, I mean sexual abuse, serious SA or physical stuff. So I'm a survivor from Brisbane Boys Yard, which is like a youth detention centre. I'm down here. They've got Cherry Creek, I believe, at the moment. Parkville, back in the day, Tirana, Malmesbury. There's some other ones as well. And then Dad's SA happened at his local primary school. So that could be private, public, or boarding. So he sued New South Wales Education Department. He got his compensation there. But it's not just for them two institutions. It's for any ward of the state, foster care. If you're put into a group home setting, if you're put into sort of any of them government institutions, any churches. Down here in Victoria, the churches are really bad. Obviously, George Pell is dead, and that's good. And all the other church perpetrators as well. So that could be, church-run programs, Sunday school. That could be any program. So a lot of the times, it's not nearly unbelievable to think this, but when I worked in this field, there used to be like priests who would go out and like target like people from lower socioeconomic households, like where I grew up, and make friends with the parents and go like giving the kids lollies, taking drives, and then try and get them out on camping trips, get them drunk, get them on drugs, and then the SA would happen. So this is for any mistreatments. A lot of people may have been mistreated on the street by police inside of correctional centres. So institutional abuse is pretty broad. A lot of us have heard, they're sad, and it takes a lot to be able to sort of tell your story as well. A lot of survivors suffer in silence for many years, and I know what that's like. I know, most survivors are serving a life sentence, whether it's in jail or outside of jail. I still deal with my own trauma to this day. Not every day for me is a good day. Some days, I have PTSD from childhood trauma. Most survivors are diagnosed with a form of psychosocial disability. It's like mental health. So you could have anxiety, could have depression, could have schizophrenia. What comes with that is that serious drug use disorder, drugs and alcohol. Lots of people taking them drugs and alcohol to try and block out what they've been through, which is quite sad. So About Time for Justice has been doing this work mostly in the prison systems, but also in the community all over Australia. So we work every state and territory for anyone who suffered that SA inside of an Australian institution. Most of the work that we do is under the age of 18. So if you did want to reach out about anything, I'll be here all day. You can reach out to us on social media. I might just stay on that one. Let's go back. So I remember when I was working up in the Northern Territory, just some really good community events up there. This one in the middle is called the Kalkarinji Walk-Off. It was a big eye-opener for me how that mob was treated up there. I know for me it was really hard to hear, how they're mistreated, and everyone got together as a community and walked with flags. It was a really good couple of days at camp there overnight. There was a lot of singing, dancing, cultural stuff. So this one here on the right-hand side, there's some local members up there. And this place here, the waterfall, yeah, it was out on country. Not anyone's allowed to go there. Had to get invited out there, and there was me and the kids out there swimming in the waterfall. I was shitting myself because in the Northern Territory, I didn't know if there was crocodiles out there or what was going on. Yeah, this one. So this is from a survivor. This letter, it means a lot to me, and this letter was written from a lady who was inside a Dame Phyllis Frost Centre. So this week since I've been down here, I've been to Dame Phyllis Frost Centre, I've been to Melbourne Remand Centre, I've been to Port Putrid, I've been to Ravenhall, and we continue to turn up for people in jail every day. So I'm just going to read this one out. Dear Jacob, I would like to take the opportunity to thank ATFJ for visiting on the work that ATFJ does is amazing. Institutional SA is much bigger than the initial thought of what this actually means. Sometimes the thought of what has happened to us as individuals is that daunting that we would rather suppress that feeling never to be surfaced. A number of problems arise from keeping these types of thoughts and feelings in the suppressed state, including depression, self-conscious thoughts, paranoia, am I good enough? Or what happens to me, again, sorry, it's a bit hard for me to just be close, which causes you to close off from their world, or sometimes worse, suicide. And not to mention, if we continue not to speak out, the perpetrator gets a free pass to continue their evil work, wrecking the lives of others. However, finally there is a place that we can turn. About time for justice. I'm pleased that your company has helped me to take the necessary steps to begin my journey in talking about our options. I look forward to seeing Jacob upon my release from Dame Phyllis Frost Centre and discussing these options. I have moving forward from a daunting time in my life. I wanted to thank Jacob for making me feel comfortable in taking action. What ATFJ does is amazingly incredible, and I look forward to the next part of my life, which will include you guys. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. So that letter means a lot to me, and for probably other survivors to read that. I always like to show that to people. Let's go next one, please. So there was actually, so how institutional abuse was sort of raised and people started finding out about it. It was actually a 5-year Royal Commission into institutional child abuse. Started in 2012 and finished in, I believe, 2017. So there were 6 commissioners, and there were over nearly 8,000 people that come forward, and that was through 42,000 calls, over 25,000 letters and emails, through all them private sessions. Lots of these cases were actually referred out to different authorities, including the police. Very, very big number, and to be honest, I think that's the tip of the iceberg. We've had a lot of people that have come forward since this time. So my family went through what they call intergenerational trauma and incarceration. So I'll just give you that big yarn about me and my dad. And, what happened in our family, to some people might sound strange or, not normal, but for other people that have been through the system, it is normal. So my dad and his 3 brothers all went to the same school. Only my dad was touched up by a perpetrator. Both of my uncles went on to study at university. One of them had a kid. One of them had 2 kids. Both of them went to university. My dad suffered the SA, so I grew up, visiting the jails, having the jail phone calls. I am studying at university now, but it took me a long time to get to that, to pull my head in. The only difference between my dad and his 2 brothers was they didn't suffer SA. So me and Dad now, our families come back together. He's out of jail. We're doing counselling. We're turning up for ourselves and our families, most importantly. Some of them tools that we use is debriefing with a mental health practitioner. That might be like a psych or counsellor. That could be a safe person even. I debrief to my dad. Making healthier choices. Instead of, going out on the weekend and, getting on the drugs, drinking heaps, that could be going to the gym, having an early night. And you know what? I'm working in progress on myself at the moment because, as I said, this didn't just switch overnight for me. Like the penny just didn't drop and everything just changed. I'm still working on myself today. Not every day is a good day for me. I still get head noise even today. Scared to come down. And when you want to start that healing journey, you got to think about who is that safe person for you? Who is that safe person? Who do you want to reach out to? Um, is it your family? Is it your mother, your brother? Is it your dad? Is it your cousin? You might be, in rehab. Your rehab staff, could be someone on the grounds that you have trust with. It could be a mental health practitioner, psych or. I just wanted to say, does anybody use social media? Yeah. If you want to give us on social media, we have a podcast and a YouTube channel. A story on there flat out. That's sort of what helped me to get to this position today that I'm in through sharing my own story. You'd be very surprised how many people would be sitting in a room together and maybe having the same feelings that you have. So I encourage, all people with lived experience to share a story because you never know who needs to hear it. You never know who you're going to motivate to come forward and take that next step in the healing journey or make that next positive move, make that next step moving forward in their life. So yeah, I really like to share that one. We're also on social media for About Time for Justice as well. So if anyone wants to reach out, here's our contact details if you want to reach out. So yeah, we work all over Australia. Sometimes it's a really hard conversation to have as well. And there's a lot of guilt, shame and embarrassment for survivors. I like to say we need to stop the perpetrator's violence by breaking the survivor's silence. And there are no silly questions here. Let's go next one. So, About Time for Justice was founded with the compensation money we received. And as I said earlier, many survivors that have been through, the SA, they end up with any of them psychosocial disabilities. So we started an NDIS business and we specialise in helping people that have been through trauma, criminal justice affected, because for survivors, they end up normally self-medicating, maybe end up in jail, overdoses, fighting, car accidents, ends up with physical disabilities. So we have people in jail that are on the NDIS, and we have also people in the community that are on the NDIS. So the two services that we provide for NDIS is support work and support coordination. So Vicky is our support coordinator. She's been in to see some of our clients in jail down here. So yeah, a support coordinator, if you're on the NDIS, can help you to budget your plan. They can help you to get any allied health professional sessions that you need. So, for example, if you needed, physio or exercise physiology, or you needed to speak to a psych or, them sort of other allied health professionals. I also have a mother who's on the NDIS. She has a really rare disability. So, for me, having a support coordinator has been really helpful. I wouldn't be able to be here right now because she gets care for 12 or 14 hours a day. So we do support work as well. So support work is like somebody who can come and help you to take you to your appointments, help to organise appointments, also to help out around the house with preparing food or cleaning up or doing any of them little emails or things that can become hard, especially for people who are coming from criminal justice system. Having somebody to take you from, say, the front gates to parole, or to take you to get your medication, take you to go get BUP, or any support letters, making sure that you get into parole, making sure that you get into court. We help out with that stuff as well. So we work remotely for the support coordination. So if you're on the NDIS and you do have a plan, we can help out with that. Let's go next one. Yeah, so we have a policy at our organisation, no questions. And just also over there's a pen and paper, like if you want to have a yarn about NDIS, if you have a friend or family member, I'm happy to just have a conversation with you, me or Vicky, just to sort of see if they're getting the service that they need. If you want to have a talk about the institutional SA or any mistreatments in the jail or by police. We also have a panel of solicitors that we work with. So we got criminal lawyers. So if you need a legal aid lawyer or need a private lawyer, or we work with family lawyers. I'm studying law at the moment. I don't give out legal advice, but because we work with lawyers all the time, We don't have the answer to every question, but I'm more than happy to just have a yarn with you if you had any, any questions at all. So does anybody have any questions? Yeah, so Dad, because Dad spent obviously so long incarcerated, he has that good jail language. So mostly the guys will call from jail, and they'll want us about whatever they've been through. So Dad does a lot of doing the mail, because in jail a lot of the ways that you communicate is through snail mail. So he'll go down and check the PO box, look through the letters, talk to clients on the phone. But Dad's gone good. So he lives about 20 minutes from mine. Yeah, and I spoke to him this morning. Any other questions? Yeah. So Vicky is based. Yeah. Yeah. Which area do you back as much? Yeah. If there's any questions, like if you feel a bit shame job right now, that's okay. Come and ask me afterwards. If they me, I am 33, 1991 model.
No, it's just interesting. Like, I was curious to know how long you were because, like, you had a massive life.
Yeah.
And you still look so, like, baby faced up.
It's that clean living, Botox. Nah, just joking.
Dane, I just want to say out loud, like, obviously the life you live,
Yeah.
I know how important it is, and not only for the people you're talking to, but for yourself.
Yeah.
To get over some shit that's pretty heavy.
Yeah. Yeah, mad. Thank you, brother. Yeah. No, thank you, brother. I appreciate that. Yeah. Any other questions? Are you? You're looking good, bro. You're looking fit. Any questions? No, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. So I'm going to continue to keep coming back down to Melbourne. So Vicky lives down here, but we're based in Tweed Heads area, which is on the New South Wales side of the New South Wales Queensland border. So we're going to keep coming down here. Also in December, we've got this big free community event coming up. Cool. So it's a men's mental health family day. It is a little bit far from here, but it's in Geelong. On the day, there's going to be raffles, bands, food, awards, guest speakers, stalls, counsellors, psychologists, mental health and disability services, bike, car show. So there's going to be some speakers. So every Monday night, we also do a free live stream for anyone to drop in on. So we do that on TikTok. So there's myself, Dennis from Run That Rehab, and a fellow called Troy from Complete Health Geelong. So many people from that lived experience community will just drop in, ask questions. We'll talk about what we've been going through during the week. A lot of mental health stuff. A lot of people who are just getting out of jail or early days of recovery, or even, been in recovery for a while, and just talking about little tips, tricks, and things that can really help if you're trying to break that cycle. So if you want to come to that event, but I'll be down again before then, and our organisation can help people in jail. So if you do have a loved one in jail, and you do want to talk about that one too, you could just put your name down that piece of pen and paper over there, or just come and have yarn with me. I'm going over to a community organisation for a meeting, I think around 4. So I'm just going to be kicking back here. I would love to get a photo with every single one of you. If anyone wants to do some social media stuff or has any questions about how you want to flip the camera on yourself and share your own story, yeah, sweet. Thank you. Thank you.
Just want to say, on behalf of Dardi and also Uncle Rossi for reaching out to us to say that, he went up the ship and sat down and had a yarn in his group and stuff, and he said, oh, well, yeah, get in contact with this fella here, and then I spoke to Arnie, so, yeah, we organised you to come and speak to the community, so
Yeah.
just want to say thank you for coming out of your own free time, and yeah, really appreciate it, brother.
Thanks.
Thank you, brother.
Sorry, I just wanted to also say thank you for having me here. I probably should have said that right at the start, so sorry about that. Yeah, it's amazing meeting Uncle Ross and the circle that he ran. It really actually touched me, like that circle that he ran. It really did. I sat in that circle with 5 boys who were in recovery, and like I talked about my story only a little bit, and then he opened up the room to everyone else to share their sad story. So it was a really good session. I don't know if any of you men have done the program, but I'd highly recommend that. Things that he spoke about that day. It's a good bloke. Thank you for tuning in. If you would like to follow along with what we do, you'll be able to find all of our social media platforms in the show notes. we do ask that you could do us one solid. If you gained any knowledge from this or provided any value, we don't charge a fee for this, but if you could just share it with one person, that would be awesome. Let's go.